You thought you had to wait a while at the DMV. Oh, that was terrible. Moving on. Hey! Overdue Doctor Who review time, and we have arrived at The Girl Who Waited. I really like this episode. I like it a lot. I feel like this is one of those episodes that really should get brought up more in terms of really strong episodes, especially if you're going to talk about Amy specifically. And I'm not going to say it never comes up, but I feel like it really should come up a heck of a lot more than it does. So this is the one where the simple mistake, just pushing a different button, separates Amy from the Doctor and Rory in completely different time streams. And as the Doctor and Rory try to rescue her, well, they missed by 36 years. And Amy is ticked. And then trying to figure out, well, how do we rescue her? Oh, we can rescue young Amy, but then old Amy doesn't want them to, because that means she doesn't get to exist at all. And she doesn't take the view that, oh, well, everything will be great. She takes the view of, that means I die, and I'm not cool with that. Which, like, how cool is that? Like, every other time that I can think this kind of scenario happened, where somebody has a event or is abandoned for a long period of time, and in a sci-fi or fantasy setting, if they have the chance to have that undone and, you know, have a different path at an earlier point in their life, they're pretty much always game for it. They're like, yeah, because I don't want what I had. And the younger me can do something else. For her to be not only not wanted, but to be so adamant, that's cool. Also consistent with her character. Like, this is just a great showcase for Amy. And a great showcase for Karen Gillan. There's a ton of really subtle things that she does in the performance as old Amy. And the makeup works. I'm glad they went subtler with it. They could have gone much more severe, especially given how much time has passed and how old she is now supposed to be. I mean, she's got to be dang close to 60. But they went more subtle with the makeup, which was good because it doesn't bury what she is doing acting-wise under latex and makeup. But there are just little things about the way she looks, particularly at Rory, and the way she speaks. She's got a little bit more of a sort of a background rasp, a little bit of a growl, a little bit of age to her voice. And it's really cool that is in there. And Rory in this, I love how justifiable Rory's anger at the Doctor at several points in this is. And honestly, I would say Amy's anger is pretty justified as well. And it would have been very easy to just completely be on their side and be like, the Doctor ruined everything. But then there's that carrot of, we can get young Amy and we can keep this from happening. And you kind of want that too, even though it completely screws over old Amy and also kind of Rory. Like, this kind of breaks him having to do this. What happens at the end, and that moment at the end where old Amy sees the Doctor's face and realizes he's not going to let her in the TARDIS. All he can do is say, I'm sorry, and close the door. And then Rory comes over, and starts to berate him, and the Doctor does, I think, what might be the most cowardly thing that the Doctor has ever done, which is to say to Rory, fine, you choose. Because they can't both exist. I know I said they could, but they can't. I lied because I was trying to get this fixed, and I needed them to believe me. I needed you to believe me, but we can't have both. So you don't want me to choose? Fine, you choose. And it's a dick move. But it's also an understandable one, because the doctor, he spent this entire story basically being berated by Rory in two different versions of Amy's for failing and not being any good at this. And he kind of throws it back in Rory's face and says, fine, you make the call then. What will you do since you don't trust me to make these decisions anymore? And under other circumstances, it would run the risk of breaking the doctor as a character, but it, again, much like with the little things done with Amy's performance and how her anger feels rooted in character rather than feeling like contrived drama, the doctor's cowardice in handing the decision over to Rory, knowing that it was not a cool thing for him to do, does feel consistent with this doctor, because he has his moments, Smith does, of basically just kind of snapping. He doesn't always turn on a dime, but when the straw breaks the camel's back, he can be nasty. And that happens here, and it gets directed at the companions, which hasn't happened a ton in New Who. Usually when the doctor snaps, it gets directed at some enemy, and oh boy, they better get out of the way. But here, he's got no one to snap at except Rory. And when old Amy and Rory are on either side of the TARDIS door, rewatching that this time, that was rough. In the best way. Because she loves him so much, and he can't disconnect. He can't say, well, that's not my Amy. This is, and so I don't have to feel the same thing I feel for her. He sees everything he loves about Amy in this older version. And the pain that both of them express in that, and with Amy being honest that she wants in. Like, she's not just, they balance this really well. She's not just saying, she never tells him it's okay. She never tells him, I accept this. Because she doesn't. But she's still honest with him and says, you should not let me in. But that's not her accepting her fate. That's her just not lying to her husband. And there was something about old Amy when she says how Rory, when younger Amy gets knocked out, and he picks her up and he carries her into the TARDIS, and old Amy says, the way you looked at her, you used to look at me like that. And really hammering the idea that this is a unique person who's had a unique life and a unique perspective separate from the Amy that has been rescued, and that this person is now going to die. It makes it feel like a loss. That's really, really good. That said, I do have some nitpicks about this, but they are relatively minor, but they do kind of stick in my craw a little bit, because the emotional resonance and the performances and the core concept, mwah, love it. However, first of all, the hand robots, they kind of annoy me. I get that they're not meant to actually be a security force, so it kind of makes sense that they're not that hard to defeat, but they're so easy to knock out that it actually kind of annoys me. It's actually towards the very end when Rory shorts one out by busting a picture over its head. Like, not even the frame, just the canvas. It just puts its head through the canvas, and that shorts it out. I'm like, really? Making them seem that weak. And it's okay that they're not unstoppable. They shouldn't be. And they overwhelm with numbers, and that's fine, but like, it doesn't quite work in terms of them trying to hit the balance on that. Other stuff they balance perfectly. That, not so much. And the other thing is, I feel, they kind of cheat. And use the passage of a significant amount of time to gloss over, I'm sorry, Amy made her own sonic screwdriver and reprogrammed an advanced piece of alien AI? I'm sorry, what? And it's not an uncommon sort of trope. It happens in a lot of fiction, especially sci-fi fantasy fiction, when a character is isolated for long enough that it's basically implied, oh, well, they just picked up these skills in order to survive. And a lot of things tend to cash that check for a bit more than it's worth. And I think this does here because, look, the human race hasn't invented anything close to a sonic screwdriver. Now, granted, like, she's been around it, she kind of knows how it handles, but that's too much of a leap. I mean, I'm not trying to shortchange her, but, you know, I drive a car every day. If you put me in a scenario where it would be helpful for me to use a car, but I don't have one, I couldn't build one from scratch. Even if I had 36 years. And it's a bit of a leap for me that Amy could build that. And similarly with hacking the interface. I'm like, really? And again, maybe part of it is because she's just never shown that particular skill set or acumen. It's not that I don't think Amy's not smart enough to be able to do this stuff, but she hasn't been shown to have that particular set of skills or that kind of aptitude. Like, if her messing around with the tech stuff was a thing that, like, she did more regularly, like, on her own, not like the doctor hands her something and she uses it, but, like, she kind of pokes around and goes, oh, and, like, figures out the technical nuts and bolts, then, yes, I could maybe make that leap, but she doesn't? Really? Not in any significant way that I can think of? And it makes that a little bit hard for me to swallow. Not to the point that it breaks and I don't buy the narrative, but, you know, that's a lot to gloss over. That's a big leap you're asking us to make. But again, I don't consider these to be major issues because the emotional work and the core thing and the relationship and the thematics of it are so good. Yeah, these things bug me, but they only bug me a little. And certainly in the heat of watching it, I'm like, yeah, that's a little annoying, but shh, this is a good bit. I kind of have that go on a lot. The Girl Who Waited. What do you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something on down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's a bunch of stuff to do as well. You know the stuff. Likes, subscribe, share this, check out the Patreon. Hey, that's a thought. Plus other links for other things besides. But you also don't have to do any of it. I mean, the links are down there below, but at the end of the day, folks, you're the council, and I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.